Where I want to start by explaining that is with the fall gap, right? Everybody knows what this is. I'm sure or maybe you haven't heard this as the terminology, but we all know what this is, right? This is something that's completely unprecedented, where patients just haven't, didn't reschedule when they missed appointments back when they were supposed to have them during COVID in March and April, right? And so it's 6 months from then, and so we're feeling it right now. We're feeling it today, and there's a lot of practices that I've talked to that are just really down. Their schedules have big holes in them. Okay, some of you guys might bounce back from the fall gap, no problem. Maybe. Is it possible? Some of you guys maybe, but my guess is most of you will not bounce back that easily without taking decisive action, without actually making a change. It's not going to be that simple. I've talked to a lot of dentists over the last couple of weeks, and what I consistently am hearing is, maybe 1 in 15 are having, I feel like they're going to bounce back. Most are feeling like they need to do something now, or this is really not going to be very good going into 2021. So let me talk about a couple of things on this and why now is the best time to actually make a change and take some decisive action. Okay. So where I want to start is with this idea of reopening metrics. This is actually something that I talked about back in, late March. And I want to bring it up again because I think let me draw that a little better. So I think it brings up a couple of really valid points. So on this axis here on the left, we have patient engagement. Okay. And on this bottom axis, we're going to have time, and it's going to be in months. It's going to be in months since the closures lifted. Okay. So basically months after, I guess, your kind of May-ish time frame, something in there. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoa, sorry about that. 9, 10. That should be enough. Okay. So let's draw this blue line across here in the middle. This line is going to represent the average new patient flow that you would have been getting in 2019 or in 2020 before the closures hit. That's going to be your average new patient flow. When the closures lifted initially, for many practices, not all, but for a lot of practices, we saw actually a huge jump. They went way up in terms of their new patient flow, their existing patient flow, just massive patient engagement right when it lifted, because there were so many dentists just didn't reopen, right? And so all those patients that wanted to go to a dentist, but they couldn't go to their own dentist, had to go to a new dentist. And so those came in as new patients for those who opened earlier. So we saw this big bump in new patient flow coming into these practices that opened. But over time, it kind of began to do this. And today we're seeing it start to kind of do this, okay? And we called this initial space here, and I think it really has come true. We called this the false hope phase. And it's appropriately named because there were a lot of dentists who were feeling like, we're good. Like, we got all these new patients coming in. We're good. COVID's totally fine. We're going to be crushing it. We got all these patients in. We call it the false hope phase because we knew that's probably not going to last. It's probably not going to be a permanent thing, right? And as the months went on and on and on after the closures, now we can look back and see all that data, and we're seeing that it's actually, a lot of that's ended. And that's why we're feeling the fall gap. And we did collected some data from our clients, and we talked with others as well who have dental clients. And the overall average is that we're seeing a drop in patient engagement here of 41%. That's just the average. It might be a little higher for you, maybe a little bit less for you, but overall, we're seeing an average drop in patient engagement by 41%, leaving calendars open. And, you're running a deficit of 41%, okay? Ultimately running that deficit. So your practice is not, of course, equipped to do that because you're going to end up in a situation where you're very overstaffed. Unfortunately, most are going to wait to act until far too late, okay? Most dentists will act here around this kind of 8-month mark, which is almost where we're headed, okay? There was this initial crossing point where things kind of went back to normal, and then we've drifted down, and we can see here at about this kind of 6-month mark that we're really starting to hit that bottom end of the deficit. But still, there are going to be a lot of dentists who are probably going to wait 1 or 2 months more and see if things are just going to correct themselves before taking action, right? And that's just 2 more months at the least of running at a 41% deficit, right? That's a huge problem. And maybe some won't even act then. Just going to say, well, it's, we just got to wait until things settle down. We just got to wait till things go back to normal. We just got to wait. We just got to wait. We just got to wait. Things will figure themselves out, right? But let's throw an arrow on this line, right? How long are you willing to wait for things to go back to normal before you're willing to make a change? Do you really feel like this arrow is just magically going to start moving back up to baseline? And at best, if it does start moving up, is that okay if it only moves up back to baseline, or do you want to grow your practice too? But how long are you willing to wait to just see what happens? Okay. Because as this continues in here, there's going to just continue to be ongoing instability within your practice, right? And every month is going to feel really unstable, really uncertain. And that's not going to go away until you actually get this fixed. That's not going to just magically go away, because if you just wait, then it's effectively like saying, hey, we're just going to see what happens. We're going to wait for the market to decide what happens to our practice. The truth is, the opportunity is right now. And there's a couple reasons for that. I mean, one thing that's really interesting that we're seeing is Google ad cost fluctuation. And this is some data that's going to support a couple of things that I've been talking about here. Take a look at this blue line. The blue line is the average cost per click for Google ads since January 1st of this year. It was way up here, and then it dropped significantly during COVID, and it started to grow just a little bit since then. And this isn't the best model, but I'll show you how this breaks down. Okay, so for all of our dental clients right now, for all services, for all ad costs on Google, all of their Google ad costs today are almost 23% cheaper than they were pre-COVID. So what that tells me is a couple of things. One, there's a lot of dentists who are still waiting. They still have not started advertising because competition's down, and that's why ad costs are cheaper. It tells me one other thing though as well. During COVID, and I have this stat, and I shared it back in March. During COVID, ad costs were down by almost 60%, which was insane. So what we're seeing here is that this has begun to go back to normal. There was, the ad cost that we saw back here, it dropped by 60%, and it's slowly starting to rise back up, but it's still down by 23%, which suggests that competition is still down. And there's a lot of dentists who are still saying, we're going to wait it out. We're going to wait to see until things get better. So if you take action now, then you're going to be one of the ones who not only benefits from having cheaper marketing and getting better bang for your buck, but you're also going to be ahead of everybody who's still saying, I'm going to wait until things get better, and who are going to continue to wait and wait and wait and wait and see this 41% deficit hit their business every single month until they take action, because it's not just going to go away by itself. The last thing I'll leave you with is Dr. Lockney's new patient flow in 2020. He had this system, he had it in place, it was fully integrated. We had to close during the closures except for emergency patients, but immediately after reopening, just his new patient flow skyrocketed right back up to where it was. And we've been able to maintain that. And we expect to maintain that in the high 40s going through the rest of this year, because he had a clear marketing strategy in place. This was not shut off. Dr. Lockney didn't decide, we're going to put everything on pause and we're going to wait till things get better. He said, no, we're going to put marketing in place. We're going to go after these patients, and we're going to keep that consistent so that we can take action and really put our best foot forward and not let the market decide what happens to us.